assumptions. You ever heard the saying that to assume only makes an A out of you and me? Well, it's true because assumptions will be the death of you in sales. You might not think that you're making as many assumptions as you are. And it's actually, at least for myself, it was very difficult for me to realize how many assumptions I was making until I recorded myself. I sent in recordings to a coach and he said, right there, you assumed you knew what they meant and you didn't. So what does this actually look like? I think a classic story, Jeremy Miner uses this one all the time. There's a Cutco knives salesman. He's selling knives and this lady comes up and she says, hi, like, how sharp are your knives? How do you think he responded? Oh, we have the sharpest knives. They're sharper than XY ABC brand and our knives will cut through anything. Just cut it right to killer sharp knives. The lady says, okay, thank you very much. I was actually looking for some knives that are not so sharp for my daughter because she's kind of young and I don't want something too sharp. Over, dude. That dude just put him in a hole. He's not coming out of that. Whereas if you would have just said, sharp knives, it just depends. Can I ask why you asked that? And he tried to understand what was behind it and he didn't make assumptions as to what she meant. He actually might have been able to frame his solution in a way that could help her get what she was wanting. So what are some solar specific examples of making assumptions? One of my favorite stories that represents this, I had a rep once. He was in home for like 2 hours trying to resolve this concern that these homeowners, they had about moving. They were concerned about moving. They're like, we just don't understand how it works when we move. We don't know if we want to do it because we might move in a year or two. We don't know. Maybe we'll move in 5 years, but we're hesitant to go solar because we think we will move in the future. So he explains how it works with moving, how it transfers to a new homeowner. They can take over the payments. There's no risk. So many people have done it. And they go on. It was like an hour and a half or 2 hours that they were going through what happens when I move. And it wasn't until an hour and a half to 2 hours later, he found out when they moved, they weren't going to sell the house. They were going to rent it out. And they didn't know how this would work if they had renters in the house. Now, when most people tell you that they're moving, what's your first thought? What do you think they mean when they say they're moving? Well, they're going to move out and they're going to sell the house to someone else. Now, when you realize there is actually an assumption made right there, you'll be able to take a step back and ask them what's behind that. You'll probe, you'll clarify, you'll actually understand where they're coming from. And my rep, dude, that would have saved him 2 hours in home. I'm sure that was brutal sitting through that and beating his head, trying to figure out like how to explain this. They could be moving and renters come in. They could be moving and family members come in. They could be moving and just not having anyone in the home, right? Another example, like someone who says they can't afford it. Well, what do we think that means? What would be if someone says, oh, well, I can't afford solar. What's your typical response? Oh, well, it's free. There's no money out of pocket. It doesn't cost you anything. Well, they put the panels up. It's less than your electric bill. Yap, 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 yap. They don't even hear what you're saying. When they say they can't afford it, if you say, okay, help me understand what's behind that. I've had people where they think, oh, well, I can't afford solar because I'd have to pay a solar payment and an electric bill. Like they didn't realize that the solar would cancel what they paid in electricity. Or some other people, they might think there's a down payment for the solar and they have to put out a couple thousand, tens of thousands of dollars in order to start the solar program. Or some people might think that the solar bill is going to be more expensive than their electric, right? There's so many different ways they could be seeing that situation and you don't know what they actually mean until you ask. And all you have to do is ask. You ask them and they'll tell you. One last example I'll give you so you can realize how many assumptions are. Some people say they don't like the look of it. What's your response? Oh, well, the panels, they don't actually look that bad, or you won't have to see them, or people don't go solar because they like how it looks. They like how their bank account looks, whatever, right? Yap, yap, yap. They don't hear what you're saying. Try to understand them. When you say you don't like the look, like, how do you mean exactly? Oh, well, we had a family member who went solar and just the way that the crew installed the conduit, it just looked so bad. Like, we just don't want that on our house. It's not even about the panels, dude. It's about the way the conduit was going through the roof, right? Like, there are so many assumptions that we're making that a lot of times we don't realize. So my challenge to you is start paying attention and catching yourself when you're making assumptions. Take a step back and ask what's behind where they're coming from. So then you can understand where they are coming from and you'll be in a much better position to help them get what they're wanting. Because in most cases, people want to pay less for electricity.